Good, yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again for showing up for our Learning Burst session. This is our third one out of for the summer, and it is focused on local food purchasing, our guide that we actually have. And Dr. Dara Bloom is with us today, and she is going to walk us through the new guide that we actually have, or updated guide, to make everything user friendly so we can get all of those fresh local fruits and vegetables into your centers and into the bellies of our children. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Dara.
Thanks, Rhonda. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Oh, and actually, sorry, before I do that, let me grab the link. So I don't know what's easier for you all, if it's easier to look at it on my screen or open it on your own. Oops, sorry, hold on one second. Technical difficulties. It's been a day of technical difficulties for me. Let me just pull up this link. Here, I'm going to put that in the chat box for you. Okay, and now I'll share my screen. So whichever way is easier for you, if it's on your own screen or on mine. But yeah, I think last time at the learning session, we started to look at this, and then our hope was that you could take some time during your breakout groups to kind of go walk through it step by step, but I know we didn't have quite enough time. So would this be helpful if I kind of reduce that a little like that? Can you all see it okay? Okay. Yeah, so I was just hoping that today, I think what we talked about last time was, since we kind of ran out of time, that we could just kind of go through it, and that, it sounds like since we just have one program on the call today, you guys can kind of think through if this applies to you, and then let us know if there's things that we should change before we go ahead and print it. So this is kind of just the overview of, we tried to break it out into 5 different steps. So starting with really defining for you and your program what local food means, thinking about how to work within the seasons and integrating that seasonal food on your menu, figuring out how much food to order for the number of children in your program, figuring out which market is best, and then we have some directories about where you can buy local food. So this first one is the definition. So what does local food mean? And our reminder here is that the USDA does have a definition. It's a little different depending on the program, but for the most part, it's 400 miles, which again, for North Carolina is basically the whole state. But it does that flexibility. If you're near a state border, 400 miles could go into another state if you needed it to. But that's the USDA definition. It doesn't mean, like for CCFP, it doesn't mean you can't have your own definition for your own program. And that really depends on what definition will feel the most comfortable for you, and where you want to buy local food, and for families. So for example, you don't want to buy, like, if the families coming to your program think that local food is within 100 miles and you think it's the whole state, then they might be like, wait, I thought it was just like within our county. You know what I mean? Like, and you don't want to have kind of that disconnect with them. I think that's kind of the key, is that whatever you do to define it, you want to really communicate that. You want to communicate it to the people you're buying from and to the folks in your program to make sure you're all on the same page. So our suggestion is to just take a minute and think about, why are you interested in buying local food? Is it about the support of farms, fresh food? How far away does it feels comfortable for you to still be local? And then are there any other factors that are important? Like when you start to go through these guides and try to find local food markets, are there other things you're looking for? So for example, if you have a lot of kids of one cultural background and you want to be able to find local produce that fits those cultural foods, you might be looking for, a certain kind of farmer. So there's no right or wrong here. It's really just kind of like what works for you. So I guess, just asking Kelly and Dustin, do you all already have an idea? Have you bought local food before? Because I know you've been in our program before, right?
Yeah, this is the first year on the collaborative, but
Okay.
we've been doing it for some time. Pretty much since COVID, I started trying to take a little more um of a dive into doing that versus canned and frozen stuff.
Mhm.
But we have so the lately what I have done is kind of started trying to go by best guidance as far as providing at least 3 items weekly So like last week, I believe we did romaine, tomatoes, and strawberries. And that was
Great.
from a farm here in Guilford County. This week we did cabbage, tomatoes, and cucumbers, again from a vendor here in Guilford County. They're
Mhm.
growing a lot of this stuff in tunnels right now, but
Okay. And that 3 times a week because that's the Go Knapsack recommendation?
that's what I'm kind of going by. And it's not that I'm saying I won't do more, but
Mhm.
that's what I've agreed to kind of meet to hit that best practice.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I mean, we even say, skipping on to the next one of just even thinking about like one fruit and one vegetable, just if for people who, if it's easier to start small, I think that's definitely a
Hmm.
great way to do it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So do you have a definition of local food?
Um, I don't believe that it's entirely defined. I'm working on revamping our handbook right now, which does have the whole portion in there for um, local foods, farm to ECE, and foods provided.
Mhm.
And probably that would be something that I could see wording in there maybe a little clearer.
Mhm.
Right now, it's just referred to as, something local. But again, like you said, that could be different for different people. I honestly haven't. I will say, in my goal is to get um, fresh things to the children, nutritious things to the children, and to support the local economy more so. Because I
Mhm.
actually don't have a whole lot of families that I would say are pushing for it.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of people that seem to take a whole lot of interest. As long as they're eating, they're happy.
Mhm.
But just trying to, like I said, that new handbook is, if people will, take time to look at it, has a whole key piece in there explaining why the importance is there, what we can gain from it, things of that nature.
Mhm. So it sounds like from that, if you have that in your handbook already, I think that's great. And those motivations of like why you want to do it, like you might want to think about saying something. It sounds like you're trying to prioritize farmers like in your county for that economic development. Is that right? Or
Preferably, I would like that, or at least something where it's been sourced. You know, I'm not opposed to being, the state or state borders.
Mhm.
Um, it's just for me, one of those things comes down to making sure that we can actually get those foods.
Right.
It's interesting, actually. I was thinking about it whenever you talked about how many people in Guilford were in the cooperative, because um, we don't have a whole lot of resources as far as places to get the foods.
Mm.
Um, I know whenever it comes to the farm to ECE connections, I'm on the map. There's lots of other things in Guilford and around, but for some reason in our area, it seems like the big thing is meat and eggs. We have several farms producing that, but there's not a lot of stuff that has um, produce that's within a easy drivable distance. Definitely not anywhere that does deliveries. But I
Mhm.
know, I think I want to say that I discussed with Trish that maybe one of the groups in Durham is
Mhm.
looking at having some sort of way of producing it here in our county. I don't know if they were going to bring it as like a pop-up thing, or if it was like a ordering and then they make a delivery to the area. It had something to do, I want to say, with a school system actually being involved, maybe Alamance County Schools.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
maybe
there's
that
a
would free
food.
it up some.
There's a food hub called Farmer Food Share, and they're out of Durham County. But we've worked with them in Lee County before, and then had some conversations with the Guilford and Alamance teams. And they just kind of based on their experiences with Lee County, set up like a separate ordering page for ECE. So they're kind of taking care of that. There were some challenges to having ECE's order or to having childcare order because of the small volumes. And so I think
Hmm.
when they set up that site, it's really helped a lot. And so they're serving Wake County childcare right now. And I know they'd be interested in expanding. I think it would probably depend on we'd have to have a conversation with them in terms of like how many programs are interested. I'm not sure they can deliver to each one, but they could do like a central drop off, or they might be able to like take turns dropping off at different centers. But it would probably depend on where you're located. So if you're, close to somewhere they're already going, they might be able to do it. I think that's the only thing is we'd have to kind of figure out the delivery
Yeah.
logistics.
Okay.
Mhm.
We last summer we did. I was not part of the group per se as far as the piloting and the funding and all, but Trish did get me on board to start buying. So we did participate in buying from the High Point hub,
Mhm.
and that worked well.
Okay.
I want to say that it was like midsummer, so I only got to order like 2 times. The
Mhm.
stuff we got was excellent.
Good. Okay.
Really,
I think they
really
had a
enjoyed.
little bit of issues with Growing High Point in terms of the availability, like having enough different kinds of products. Because I think Growing High Point mostly has like a storefront. And so
Mhm.
they weren't used to trying to also sell kind of extras into a different market. And so I think they just, I don't know, it seemed like there were kind of mismatches sometimes. So I think
Well,
I just
yeah,
wanted to try to find something different.
one of the challenges that I found with it is that there's no guarantee to anything. So like after working with the collaborative, I reached out and had a meeting with them, and they set me up to be able to buy directly. But in doing that, they basically send me a food list on like I think on Tuesday maybe. I
Mhm.
have to have my order in by Wednesday, and then they turn it around by Friday. So it's all very fast paced when you don't even have a heads up of what you
Mm,
can get. And then, on the last call I was discussing there, if, so my thing is CACFP is definitely trying to pick up on this farm to ECE key. When
mhm,
they came out recently, they loved everything that we were doing with farm to ECE and everything.
mhm.
But there is a there's a piece there that is challenging for creating a monthly menu when you're not sure what you can get next week, much
Yeah,
less 3 4 weeks out.
yeah.
So that was one of the things that I ran into them, and then ultimately maybe they sent like 2 food lists, and then it dwindled, and I haven't heard anything back from them. So we
Mhm.
just started. We have a local farm very close, and like I said, right now a lot of it's greenhouse grown, other than their strawberries. But I've been buying through them, and I've been pretty happy with it. I know the collaborative looked into utilizing them, but there were two pieces to that. One, they stay super busy, so I don't think that they're really looking to give a big discount. And then two, they are, I don't know that they could keep up with the volume of multiple centers, because again, they have a great retail market already. So I go in and I buy what I need for the week, and that's fine. But trying to say, well, we need 350 pounds of tomatoes is going to put a dent in them being able to provide retail.
Right, right. Where they
It's
probably get
something
higher
that I think
higher
that they
prices
could
for
grow
resale.
into, but
Mhm.
it's not something I think they can do, immediately.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so when you say you want it, like in terms of the monthly menu planning, so how far ahead do you need to know?
So Kelly does our menu, and generally that is put together. I mean, right now she's working on stuff like finalizing stuff for June, so already that's pretty ready. So what we're kind of doing in that terms is looking at what's in season,
Mhm.
and I should be able to get access to that stuff somewhere somehow. It just may not be the same farm, but
Mhm. Okay.
we can't. One of the things that I clarified, we are leaving being a sponsored CACFP provider, and
Mhm.
we have now become an independent CACFP provider. So learning some of the differences between what I can and cannot do um, has been sort of a learning curve. But one of the nice things is we actually can make modifications to our menu on the fly now, whereas
Right.
before we couldn't do that because it was put through a sponsor that had to verify everything. Da, 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 da.
Mhm.
Now they did clarify, as long as your receipts are matching it, as long as your paperwork's matching it, mark through it. You can't get carrots, mark through it, choose another vegetable you can get, you're good to go. So
Right.
that is very helpful.
That's great to hear. Hey, Nikki, how are you doing? We're just going through this local food buying guide and kind of having some conversations about how local food buying is working for everyone and just kind of whether or not this our guide is useful. So Dustin, I guess, kind of going back to the local food definition, I think one thing you could do if you are working on your handbook is say something like that local food for you, you'll try to prioritize Guilford County when you can, and that you're also open to buying things, within North Carolina, potentially. Because I think that also leaves you open, for example, if you do buy from Farmer Food Share, they can get apples from the mountains in North Carolina, and so that's like a nice thing to be able to do too. So I think I would say kind of leaving yourself open to a statewide definition, and then say, you'll prioritize Guilford County when you can, because that does sound like it's important to you, but it kind of leaves you open to find what you can. Hey Nikki, how about you guys? Do you have like a definition of what local means for you? Or I don't know, does it feel important? I guess that's what I'm hearing from you is it doesn't necessarily feel too important either if like the families aren't necessarily asking for it.
Um, I don't know about important, but I know it's one that Trish and I kind of harped on what does local mean when we were doing the last collaborative, because sometimes Virginia was closer than other farms, just based on proximity. So yes and no, but my parents just kind of like blindly trust me. Um, but yeah, it's probably in there as local, but defined, no.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think before you get on, I mean, I think just taking some time to think about it a little bit to help guide your decisions when you actually start to buy is a good idea. And then also to just kind of avoid a situation where you might have a mismatch in expectations where, if you have a family that, that comes in and all of a sudden they realize that, local for you included Virginia and they thought it meant the county and you know what I mean? And it's fine if it's Virginia, I think as long as, you're kind of if you're able to kind of explain your decisions and why, and say, hey, well, this is our definition of local, and if it's, it could be within the 400 miles, which is what the USDA says, and, just something where you're just being really clear about it so nobody feels like, you tricked them into something. All right, well, I'm just kind of keeping an eye on the time, wondering if it might be good to kind of move on to step 2. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's funny.
So again, kind of the idea here is starting to really understand seasonality. So we've included in the guide the kind of the 2-page seasonality chart that comes from the North Carolina Department of Agriculture. Does that just from the perspective of having a guide, does it feel helpful to have it here, or would it be better to just have the link and have less pages here?
I think it's a good resource to have attached to the guide.
Okay.
We can always, get a copy if we need to as far as posting. I've actually put that same one out for parents before.
Oh,
Using it
cool.
through Knapsack, I've used it as one of my parent resources to kind of help them also try to figure out things for home.
Oh, nice.
I agree with Dustin. It never fails. Anytime I go to look for it, I can't find it, like by just searching. So the more places that it exists, the better, because I can be a little special sometimes.
No, I totally understand. And we do have, this is the other question that we had as we're doing the guide is we've got the QR codes there. Like, is that helpful? Like, do you guys use QR codes? I feel like a little old that I'm like, oh, how do I do this again? Sometimes I feel like my mom. So I just wanted to make sure that it's like, is that, and I think like these are hyperlinks. So like you will be able to just click on it. But if we did a printed copy, we wanted to have some way for people to use the link.
Yeah.
Okay. So QR codes are okay.
I think it works well. We had a teacher that went to um, the meeting that you guys did in Raleigh that got the book where you can check out the farms using the QR codes, and that's been like fantastic to kind of give an insight of. So I think it's useful.
Okay.
It's easy to scan if you need to.
Is that from, maybe I'll have to check in with Sharonda. I wonder if do you know if that's Growing Minds or?
Um, I don't have it here with me. I don't. That
I'm
doesn't
wondering,
sound familiar. I can't
I'm
remember,
wondering
but it's each section. It's got maybe 3 to 4 or 5 pages on each different vegetable or fruit. Gives you
okay.
some facts about it that you can share, and then it always has a little QR code where they can scan it, and it gives about a 5-minute video where they kind of interview a farm that specializes in that.
Okay, cool. I think it must be the I Tried Local
That does that. Yeah,
that Debbie from ASAP had. Cool. I'm just thinking, I wonder if we should link that here somewhere too. This is almost the problem with this is that there's so many great resources and we wanted to be able to like hand folks something that's like really short easy to follow, which meant cutting out some resources, which was kind of hard. Yeah, and so I guess on this page we have a couple of other resources. We had kind of created at CEFS this kind of menu analysis worksheet, which is it's kind of straightforward, just a way to kind of like, all right, what vegetables are currently on your menu, and looking at the seasonality chart, where could you make changes? We've got the CACFP, the North Carolina Division of Health and Human Services, CACFP seasonal menus. And then, like I said, kind of just our advice, which was like, start small, maybe choose one fruit and one vegetable, start with easy to use snack foods. I think we need to put this one on the bottom, kind of things, as you get used to vegetables, the potential to kind of try other things, focusing on, like you had said, replacing canned or frozen with fresh. And then just that idea of like matching what's growing in the garden to kind of make those connections to the classroom too. Does this page seem useful? Like, does this seem like good advice, or like, does this fit with your experiences of buying local?
I would say so. I mean, I think having the menus is good if someone doesn't have access to that. Again, that is something that's a little bit tricky to track down yourself. And then, yeah, I mean, as far as the stuff on the right hand side of the page, herbs are super easy to add into about anything, so that works well. I think my most tricky one on that list would probably be meats, just because that's something that comes sourced pretty easy from our food supplier. But I would say that in the list of things that I would be able to do local, that would probably be the last on my list that I could implement.
Because of the cost, or?
I don't know. I don't really know how to explain what would stand in the way. It just is in our setting, using raw fresh meats already comes at one concern. Whenever I get it from my food supplier, it is vacuum packed, ready to go in a pre-proportioned amount. You know exactly what's in there as far as weight. Sometimes you get into things with like farms where you buy a bag of something and you break it down and it's 20 pounds and you've got to have a whole set of scales, and then you're worried about cross contamination and all this other stuff I feel like gets involved when you start looking at using the meats. If there, there may be a place that specializes in getting it put together in smaller batches, but
No, that's really helpful. We, out of CES, we also have a program that works with meat farmers and set up an online, it's actually one of the links we have at the end is, there's kind of an online marketplace where you can find farmers. And one of the things that we found is that we have farmers who are selling, like we call them bulk meat, so that you could buy, like a quarter of a cow, or, but they're trying to get them to bundle it in a way that's easier for consumers to use, because I think a lot of consumers, when they hear a quarter of a cow, it's just like, what am I going to do with this? So trying to get kind of the wholesale, have it like available at wholesale prices in kind of these bundles, basically, these like bulk bundles. So it's a resource we have on here, but it's really helpful to kind of hear that about that it might not be a priority. I think it's usually not something we mention a lot, just because we talk so much about farm to ECE in the context of health too. And I think so we focus so much on fruits and vegetables because of that kind of easy connection to promoting health.
when we do, and this has changed a lot. The food provider that we had before was Orel's, and they actually did all their meat production here in Guilford County, which was
nice.
They have been bought out by a Texas company. I would assume they still have their meat packaging plant here, but I don't know that it's, there's no way to know in our case. But they do, so our ground beef we get in 10-pound cases, I believe, and it's 2 5-pound blocks in there. So then that kind of gives you an idea whenever you go to cooking it, how you need to break that down.
Okay.
Chicken, we can order. So whenever we order the chicken breasts, they come, they're all supposed to be, not always perfectly, but they're all supposed to be those 5 to 6 ounce portions or something. So, whenever I cut this in half, I'm going to have X amount of ounces. Again, just kind of making sure that it meshes with CACFP guidelines as well whenever it comes to the portion of it.
Yeah. Great. Nikki, how about you? Does this page kind of fit with what you're working on, or would you, like I said, we can change anything right now. So
Right. I don't know how many programs also do what we do. We have catering. So my lunch is outsourced, but I did just actually text my caterer once. You said that to let him know because I've swapped to a new one, and they're much more in line and collaborative with what we're trying to do here. So he'll grab herbs and stuff already from our garden. So I'm like, if you use something local, if you have a source local to where you're at, let me know so I can highlight on the menu. And they're like all about it. So while I'm not personally sourcing it, they'll be my partner in that. So to be determined.
that's great. I mean, I love hearing that you found like a partner who sounds like might have the same values.
Such relief.
Yeah, great. All right, well, if you think of anything on this page, let us know. And this is actually this whole like step 2 of the put seasonal food on the menu is probably the longest one. So we've got kind of that seasonality piece and then the seasonality chart. But then we also wanted to provide some links to recipes with local food. And then also just in terms of kind of food storage and preparation, we've got some kind of knife skill videos, videos about cooking skills, and then this produce storage guide too. Because I think one of the things we heard a little bit in the last couple of years of the program was just making sure people know kind of like what should go in the fridge, what needs to stay out on the counter, kind of things like that. How to store stuff. So we actually created a new kind of subheading on our SEP's resource page for Farm to ECE because we had, like I said, we had so many links for the recipes that it just felt a little bit, just a little bit out of control. So, but they're all like CACFP standardized recipes. So does that all feel useful or?
I think it'd be a great resource to share with my families, being that we don't cook in house.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see that. And then the next step is that question around how much food to order. And I don't know if you've been part of our collaborative before. Well, I guess Dustin, you weren't actually in it last time, but we do have this North Carolina Fresh Produce Purchasing and Prep Guides. And Kelly, I don't know if you've seen this either, but the link here, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but the link on the top there has a spreadsheet where you can actually put in how many kids you have, and it'll use the CACFP guidelines to tell you like how many pounds of each item to purchase. But because it's a little, it's a little clunkier to have to open up the spreadsheet and find it. So we actually worked with an extension agent who kind of made up this sheet of just kind of like a quick guide to just like an estimate of, again, based on the meal pattern. So if you wanted apples, kind of how many pounds you'd need to buy for, to serve kind of those different serving sizes. Does that seem like something that seems helpful or? Hey Kelly, I feel like you might be talking, but you're on mute.
I was gonna say I love that chart. That would be super helpful.
Awesome. And I just realized, okay, yeah, and these are for 3 to 5 year olds.
That was gonna be my question because I was wondering if it was combined. That's the biggest issue that I've had with the spreadsheet because we do have a split center. So you have to address infant to 2-year-olds and then, trying to make sure that you're getting the right portion for each age group. And I didn't see it on that chart, but you said it was on the bottom of it.
No, I'm realizing that the chart is just 3 to 5 year olds, and not, but the spreadsheet has, like you said, it's broken out by age group and not just the 3 to 5 year olds. But you're right, that quick guide is just 3 to 5 year olds. Would it be helpful? I mean, we could add another page that was the same thing, but for I'm sorry, what is the other age group, 1 to 2?
It's nice that it's broken down. The spreadsheet has worked fine for me. It just is something where, because it is so clunky, it's definitely not something you're going to use on the go. You need to sit down behind a computer, figure everything out before you try to go to the store. That's not. I've tried. Office on your handheld device is not easy to function that chart at all. The original one.
when you say the original one, you're talking about
The spreadsheets.
okay. Because Dara, I was thinking about the resource that we have on our webpage where they put the amounts in, because that does go into toddler age and everything, and birth through toddlers. That would help.
That's the one that Dustin's talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm wondering, so then this reference guide here, that this kind of one pager, should we do another one that's for younger kids?
I mean, I feel like it'd
I
be
think
helpful if you
so.
did, but like Dustin was saying, if you figure it out on your computer, what I have done is just written it down alongside of my printed out copy of the what's in season, so that I just kind of have like a quick reference. But then those of you who know me, I just like to wing things, and so I'm mostly out here just winging it.
So you kind of calculate how much you need for your center and put that on.
Because I have, like Dustin, I have mixed ages.
Okay. So you do it for each age and then kind of add it up.
So like if I've already figured out how much I need to serve everybody, I'll go ahead and write that down for future reference.
Okay.
So I don't have to redo it every time.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you think? Another one for the 1 to 2 year olds?
I think it could be helpful if it's not something that's just terribly time consuming to put together.
No, because I feel like we already have the numbers. It's just kind of putting it into, into this format.
Things that are most used, which it looks like most of that list is all things that we use.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good to hear too. Great. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate this feedback. The other kind of information we had on this sheet, going back up to the kind of where the spreadsheet was, is just again kind of recognizing that some people might pick this up and be like, oh, no, this feels like a lot, and it's kind of that recommendation of, if you're not quite ready for meals and snacks, that you can start with taste tests. And there's a couple of toolkits around how to do taste tests. And I know we've been working closely with Robeson County, and kind of one of the things I was saying is like, do a taste test before you put something on the menu, kind of figure out like what kids like, what's working for them. And that, or just like doing one item per season, right? So just do strawberries when they're season, do cucumbers another month, just kind of doing maybe a month, highlighting one thing a month. And then, the NC Crunch in October with apples, or anything crunchy is kind of a good place to start. Does that all sound like good advice?
Yep.
Thank
One
you.
of the things that you guys brought up Friday that I thought like was a really good idea that I do want to do. Again, we have had not issues, but I do feel like there are families that just take for granted that they have fruit and they're okay with that. They don't really care where it comes from.
Mhm.
So last week when we talked about taste test, even though we're well beyond that stage, I really like the idea of having a store-bought, Harris Teeter or whatever, strawberry, and then the strawberry from the local farm. Have the children try it, maybe chart that, and be able to put it up, in a space where your parents are seeing it. And maybe, if they're old enough to use descriptive language, then you could even get as far as, well, why did you like this one more or dislike that one more? And then, of course, you're going to get sour, tart, sweet, whatever. So I thought that was a really good, useful thing as far as getting parents, I guess, to pay a little more attention to what is going on and the difference in the foods that are offered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I've done that with extension agents at trainings, and I brought in celery from the supermarket and celery from a local farm, because celery, I think, is one of those things that like you get it from the store and it doesn't taste like anything. If you get it from a farm, there's like this really, really strong taste, and if you like it, you like it. Yeah, thanks. That's great to hear. We also have some notes then about just the idea of trying to buy at bulk, in bulk. So, just in terms of kind of sending folks to markets, and, like going to farm stand is good, but, the prices can be higher if you're in a store versus if you're ordering from, like a food hub, for example. And so just making sure people kind of have some ideas about buying in bulk. And we actually so we've got a couple things. One is this idea of like, if you can buy extra and freeze. So for example, buy, a lot of blueberries and put them in the freezer if you can. And then these are down here of like buying in bulk with other childcare programs and seeing if families and staff want to buy local food. We're actually working on other guides on kind of best practices for doing that. So we're going to have some links there to those guides once those are ready, but they're not quite ready yet. So, and then under kind of our tips below is just, the idea of potentially buying seconds, which can be, just a little bit different than kind of the perfect, products that a lot of times you'll see in the supermarket. And then that idea of just kind of trying to get those wholesale prices. So what do you think? All seem useful advice?
Mhm.
All right, thanks. Y'all are our guinea pigs here. You're the first ones who get to see this. We really appreciate it. And this is our decision tree. I don't know, Nikki, I know you've been in our program before, but it sounds like if you've been using a caterer, you probably haven't used this. And I think we're hoping to redo it so it's a little bit easier to use. But I don't know, Dustin, have you seen this before?
It doesn't look familiar.
The idea is just that you can walk through it. We kind of start at the top around kind of like, how often you're using local food. Over here it's just like, if you're not using fresh foods, that maybe start there before doing local. And then kind of taking a look at kind of like, really kind of the volume. Like if you only need it for snacks or taste tests, like Nikki, that might be you, right? And that you're going to end up maybe just, either getting it from the garden or somewhere kind of smaller scale. Um, and then kind of compare to if you need a higher volume. So it's kind of just walking people through kind of like what volume they need, whether or not they want a personal direct relationship with a farmer, and then whether or not they need delivery, and then kind of all the different options along the bottom are kind of the different outlets. And so you can kind of like go through it and kind of see what your priorities are and try to lead you to the different markets. So there's kind of the farmer's market or farm stand. If you're someone who like wants that direct relationship with your farmer, you actually want to choose each thing, then you're probably better off going to the farmer's market. If you're just doing snacks or taste tests, you might look at like a CSA program where you're getting like a box of food every week, which usually what we found is it's not enough for like putting in all of your meals, but it would be enough kind of maybe just for some kind of taste tests. We do also encourage folks, like we have grocery store and distributor on here because, we know that for some folks, like if it just the easier it can be, the better, right? So it's like if you're already going to a Food Lion and they've got something that they're highlighting that's local, that's also supporting a local farmer. And the same thing with distributors. I know like Cisco and US Foods have local food options too. So that's always an option. It sounds like Dustin, you've been purchasing straight from a farmer, and then there's also, those food hubs that I mentioned too. And we have just a little description of each of them over in the next page too, just that reminder for folks. Because I think just do you all know what food hubs are? Other than the definition that's on the screen.
Well, not reading that. My thoughts are that it's a place where farmers that may not have a retail space can bring their product that's in a more accessible and friendly way of people buying it, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, food hubs are really, I mean, they're distributors, right? So they're buying from lots of different farms, but they usually have like a social mission. Like there are a lot of them that are nonprofits, so they're trying to buy from farmers who might not have other markets or farmers who just have historically not had access to markets, and they're usually trying to also sell to consumers who might also have limited access to healthy food. So like Farmer Food Share that we mentioned is a food hub. They're a nonprofit and they're really trying to sell to schools. That's why they like went through this extra effort to set up a separate ordering for childcare. It's because like they really have this mission to serve folks and increase healthy food access. So that's kind of why we often partner with them. Right, that you worked with Growing High Point. Yeah. Yeah. So any thoughts or feedback on any of these? Like, is this a helpful Sounds like, I know you all already have kind of your markets, but is this like a helpful way to look at things?
I think it just depends on what each place is trying to do and kind of where they're at in the steps. But I think if you are someone just starting out, it's helpful to understand the different things that are out there and what they may actually be, other than just a term that you've heard before.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then this is our kind of our last step, and then we have one more page after that. But you mentioned like the connections map, but then we do also have the NC Food Hub Collaborative. So it's really all of the nonprofit food hubs in the state are listed on that site. And one of the food hubs in North Carolina sells chopped produce, which is really, really helpful. And so that's Working Landscapes, but you can buy Working Landscapes chopped produce through Farmer Food Share, for example. So they're all kind of networked together. So we've got those on there. Visit NC Farms. I actually just learned at a meeting this week that their app is not working anymore and they have a website. So we need to go in and change that. But that's out of the North Carolina Department of Agriculture, and it's more kind of agritourism. So like farms that are set up a little bit more to do like farm visits, you pick, they might have kind of local food celebrations. So we thought that might be a helpful link. And then ASAP, or there's a nonprofit partner out in the western part of the state, so probably too far west for you all, but wanted to include them there because they're a good partner. And then that meatsuite.com is, as I mentioned, the one that has kind of that bulk meat. Yeah, and then that's kind of so those are our 5 steps, and then we just had a list of places to, I mean, partly to just remind folks, like one, we have this guidance from environmental health on preparing local food, especially kind of around some of the sink issue. I think when we first started working with Guilford County a really long time ago, like pre-COVID, there were issues about having enough sinks to wash produce from farms. So we actually worked with the state level environmental health folks to get some guidance on that. So that's there if it's helpful. And then the rest is really related to CACFP, just to make sure that folks, kind of understand, as we're recommending making substitutions to menus, making sure they kind of have an idea of what the rules are for CACFP. There's a fillable receipt, so that if you are buying from a farmer who doesn't usually do receipts, you can just print that and like have them fill it out and sign it and submit it to CACFP. And then it's kind of some resources from CACFP. And that is it for our lovely new guide. Do you all feel like this is something you might be able to use, or you think other folks might be able to use, or anything you would change or add, anything that's missing?
I think it's a good layout on there, and I do think that it's helpful for people that are trying to get into it and learn more and kind of understand, where to start with things.
So our graphic designer wanted to make sure that I asked, like, did it look kind of easy to use, like the format and the layout?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it looks good to me. Looks a lot better than what I would put together.
I know.
Kelly, what are your thoughts? Because you're on that ground and you're in the kitchen doing these things. What did you think about everything and the usability of it?
I think it looks really user friendly. Like in talking with Dustin and stuff, most of that information is already, things that I know, but there were a couple of things in there that were like, oh, I didn't even think about that. So it looks really user friendly. It looks really nice. It looks like something that you would want to use.
Thanks so much. Morgan, Morgan's my friend who's also works with us and is our graphic designer, and that's going to make her really happy to hear. I know she worked really hard on these. All right, awesome. Well, I think that's really kind of all we had for today. We do have another learning burst planned for next week. So one of the things I had thought to share is kind of some of those other, mentioned that we'll have these other links around these other purchasing models, around kind of collaborating and buying from food hubs and, extending purchasing to families. Does that feel like it would be useful, or are there other topics around local food that because I'm open, whatever questions you have around local food, if there's something else you want to take, we'll have an hour together. Like if there's something else you'd rather kind of take your time to talk about, like I'm happy to do that too.
The only thing that comes to mind for me with that, I actually texted Trish this morning and was like, because honestly, I thought that I had missed it. I missed out on the Xfinity group being for them yesterday, and I was thinking that I had missed the date. But it would be nice to kind of know prior to the meeting what it's best suited for, I guess. Because one of the things that I know we discussed before I signed on to the collaborative was during all these different meetings and whether it's a learning burst or learning session and things of that nature, they're not things that I necessarily have to be on, but maybe it's something really good for Kelly's knowledge, or maybe it's something really good for the teacher's knowledge, because they generally fall during our children's nap time, so it works pretty good where as long as I can work it around their lunch, I can pull a couple people if needed. So, if there's something that would be really good or helpful for teachers to understand a little bit better about how to introduce the foods and talk about them and speak with families and stuff like that, then just knowing, ahead of time, oh, this is a really good one for this type of staff. I think that would be, most helpful to me in the situation.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's helpful feedback. Thank you. Are there any other kind of local food topics that people would be interested in, or? All right, well, Sharonda and I will touch base and we'll let you know, and we'll give you a heads up ahead of time, kind of who it would be best for.
Okay.
All right, Sharonda, anything else you wanted to add?
No, I thank you guys as always for being on. So next week will be a continuation, like she said, of local food purchasing, and then I'll put down what we have going on. It's food preservation, if I'm not mistaken, for what month is next month? June. By y'all, I am so sorry. But I do know we do have food preservation, 2 courses on that next month. So kind of going back to what Dara said earlier, if you have your blueberries, trying to freeze them, how to best do that and how it would be okay according to, licensing and things like that. But we have an extension agent that's going to be doing that training for us and helping us with that. And that may be something too that teachers would like, because when we think about not just in the preschool setting, but also how this carries over into the homes of even our teachers, because we know that they don't make a lot of money. So if they are able to find out new ways to help preserve food at home also for them, then that would be good too. So.
That was,
okay.
I think that honestly, the resource that I had that flew off my shelf the fastest was Knapsack has a linked resource that is storage of foods and for them to last the longest, whether to put them in bags, whether to have them exposed in the dehydrator, this, that, and the other.
Okay.
And trying to make sure that people get the longest life out of the food. And I had teachers, parents, everybody was really feeling like that was a useful topic.
Okay. All right. Well, it'll be a continuation, and as far as it'll be something recorded, so you can easily share this out with your families too if you send video things out to them whenever we get to those as well. So okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. No, so thank you.
And that's really good. I'm
wondering. I'm sorry. I was going to say
go ahead.
If they have any particular foods that they want to truly learn about too, is which way to do it best, please go ahead and let me know, and then I can forward that to our presenter. Okay. Thank you.
Well, and I didn't know about that Go Knapsack resource. That's what I was going to say. Like, I know we linked to something about storage that comes out of extension that we have, but if that's, I'll look into that and kind of take a look and see which one. Like, it might be better to link to that one if it's one that folks already have access to.
Yeah, it was in the like the families resource section under
Okay.
maybe foods offered or something. But I was able to, if I'm remembering correctly, it kind of has like a two-side page. It seems like it's got a counter picture and a picture of a fridge, and just talks about all the items and the best way to, even whenever you think about like tomato or potatoes or onions or whatever, and keeping them dry and in a darker place, things that people just don't think about sometimes. There was one on there, it was like, you should keep this in your cabinet completely dark.
Hmm. Okay, great. Thanks. I'll look that up. All right, Shonda, are we letting everyone go?
We are. I'm sorry. My eyes were distracted because I see a spider. So sorry about that, y'all. So thank you all so much. And we will see you next week. Okay.
Thank you. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank